saw in my dream that Christian got to the borders of the valley of the shadow of death, and he met two men, children of those who bring an evil report of God's good and pleasant land. They were racing away back from the valley. "Where are you going?" said Christian. "Oh, back, back," they cried. "Back, back, we would have you do so, if you prize either life or peace." Christian said, "What's the matter?" "Matter? Matter," they said. We were going the way you were going, and went as far as we dare, but indeed we were almost beyond coming back if we'd gone a little bit further, and you'd be in trouble if we were not here to bring news to you." "What have you met with?" said Christian. "Wow, we were almost there at the valley of the shadow of death, but by a good chance we looked before us and saw the dangers." "What have you seen?" said Christian. "Why, it's the valley itself," said the men, "which is dark as pitch. We saw hobgoblins and satyrs and dragons of the pit, and we've also heard that in the valley are continual howling and yelling as of people in utter misery, sitting around in affliction and irons, and over the valley hangs the discouraging clouds of confusion. Death always spreads its wings over it, and in a word, it is dreadful and without order." "Well then," said Christian, "I don't understand what you've said, but this is the way to my desired haven." "Well," said the men, "be as it may, we won't choose it for ours." So they parted, and Christian went on his way, but he still had his sword drawn in his hand, for fear he should be assaulted. I saw in my dream, as far as the valley reached, there was on the right side a very deep ditch, the ditch into which the blind have led the blind for all ages and miserably perished. Again, on the left side, a very dangerous quagmire into which many a good man has fallen and found no bottom for his foot to stand on. The pathway is exceedingly narrow, and Christian had to be more careful, especially as it was dark, so that he would shun the ditch on the one side and the mire on the other. And so he went on his way. I heard him sigh bitterly because of the dangers mentioned above. The pathway was dark, and sometimes when he lifted his foot, he didn't know where he would set it down next. "Poor man, where art thou now? Thy day is night. Good man, don't be cast down, for thou art right. The way to heaven lies by the gates of hell. Cheer up, hold on. With thee it shall go well." Back on our pilgrim path. More fearful than the devil for John Bunyan was the valley of the shadow of death, the thought of death, and the thought of all that lies behind it. And that's what he says. He says it in his book in a very descriptive way. And the fear of the unknown, the fear of what we cannot see, and our minds are full of all kinds of terrors when we think ahead. And that's what he's describing. But the man of this world, it tries to ignore it and run away from it and jollify it in a way. How many funerals have you been to where people don't want to be sad and don't want to deal with the reality of what's happening? But the Christian isn't allowed to do that. The Christian has to face it and recognize it in its true reality. Death is the result of sin, and it is an unknown place, and at times it feels very dark, and we have to walk by faith through its shadow, and the hope of God lies on the other side. These are very solemn things that Bunyan puts into pictorial language, and yet we have not to fear it. We're living in a day where people fear it and want to ignore it, but the Christian's not allowed to. The Christian's got to recognize the reality of the penalty of sin and live by faith and walk by faith. Well, may God help us in our lives as we live with the reality of this world. And may he bless us and may we know his comforting hand with us, even as we walk through at times the valley of the shadow of death. Well, from me and my little friend here, down by the pathway, you ready? Ready to keep moving? Have a good day. May God bless you.